Hi everyone, I'm Ann with Kai Dragon Gardening and Cooking Channel, and today I want to talk to you a little bit about hanging vegetable garden ideas. So this is anything from growing on trellises to poles to whatever you can do so you can do some vertical gardening, and hopefully these tips will be something that you can use when you're growing in small spaces and you want to grow and get more bang for your buck. I don't have my readers on, so it might be a little rusty. We'll get through this. Want to grow vertically to get more in a small space? Well, making trellis ideas can train your plants to grow upward, keeping them off the ground for better disease and pest control. It is so true, especially when you are growing things like your cucumbers and your squash and stuff, that the more you can keep that plant up off the ground, the better off you are, because the bugs don't tend to get on all the leaves. Plus you can check the leaves easier when you have them up off the ground. And a squash is a little more difficult to do that with, but it can be done. And I usually recommend getting the little pieces of PVC pipe or the poles that you can get that are the heavy plastic, and usually you want at least a 6-foot piece, if not maybe the 8, because believe it or not, by the time you get done staking up, you're going to go quite a ways up on that pole with your squash plant. Some people use cattle panel, and you can use cattle panel. It is great. Biggest problem I have is you have to be able to haul it to your location. So but you can use cattle panel and attach it to fence posts, rebar, wooden poles. It bends easily to create a nice arch. I mean, it does make a beautiful arch. The squares are really big for the fruit to come down. The downfall, like I said, is hauling it to your location. So if you have a friend or farmer, somebody that's got a big truck that can haul it to you, and you can figure out about how many pieces you're going to need for doing some arch trellising, it's great. Usually when you do arch trellising, you want to get the 6 to 8 foot T-posts and attach it to that. That way you have your arch up high enough that it's not in your way, and you have a good walk-through area, and it's great even if you're wanting to put it over a raised bed. So that's cattle panel is amazing for that. Many people used rolled fencing like chicken mesh wire, you know, like the chicken wire fencing. It does come in 2, 3, I believe 5-foot rolls, and it's very, very flexible. And if you're using the right stuff to attach it to, it does make a great trellis. Also, the small rolled fencing, which is what I use to create one of my trellises, and I will show you that a little bit later on in the video. Another great idea is trellis material from concrete mesh. Again, it bends easily and it can be attached to your T-post, PVC pipe, rebar, any of that type of thing that you need to attach it to, just to create your arch effect. The ideas are really endless in a garden, so use what you already have on hand and just use a little creativity with it. Another thing that people don't think about is old shutters. Those old shutter doors, you can take them and make them into a little V shape and attach small pots to them in different areas, and it's sturdy enough that you're able to grow vertically that way. And then you can get a longer pot to put down on the bottom, and you can grow your beans and peas and things that naturally like to climb right up that stuff, because they will attach to it as it goes. Or you can use the small garden wire to help with that. And then you can plant some of your herbs in those little pots that you attach to the sections. I don't have an example to show you, but I have done that before. Another thing that I have done is taken old doors and old screen windows, storm windows from like the very old houses. Sometimes you can find those at estate sales and flea markets. People have them laying in the garages and stuff. And where the window part was, of course, take the window part out. Take the mesh that's a little bigger than your hail screen and staple that all around the frame of the door or the window or whatever. And then use, again, your T-post to make it stand. And then you can put pots and different things on that, and you can also use it as a trellis, because they will find those open holes, and some of your vining plants will naturally climb up that stuff. So like I said, the ideas and the creativity you have for that, it's endless. So there are all kinds of things you can use, and some of the corniest things end up making some of the great trellises. People say, wow, how did you get that? So don't underestimate yourself. Some of the best garden veggies for growing vertically are the indeterminate tomatoes. Those tomatoes will grow and grow and grow and grow, and you keep cutting off the bad leaves, they will just keep getting taller. And if you put 2 or 3 plants like on each side of a trellis, and do it on the other side too, then they will grow up that trellis and then meet in the middle. And if you use different kinds, if you buy different varieties of tomatoes when you're doing this, it makes a very, very colorful look in your garden. It's easier to find your tomatoes because they'll just be hanging down right at you, and they're easier to pick, so they're easier to harvest. Like I said, easier to see, and fun to snack on when you're walking through the garden. So you don't want to forget to try it with tomatoes. And sometimes you can get the really cheap trellises that they use like for wedding decor and stuff, that are made out of the heavy plastic or the metal and stuff, and they will withstand a good season in the garden. So that's something to think about. And I have bought the little bags with the mesh trellis netting in them before, and used that over an arch trellis and wired it on, and it was great for the beans. And there again, I will show you that later in the video. So like I said, the fruit's easier to see, pick, and manage, and by trimming the lower leaves regularly, the fruit continues to grow until it's killed off by the hard freeze in the winter. So you can keep that tomato plant going until you're ready to shut down that part of the garden right before winter hits. Plant several varieties and see which one works best for you. Cucumbers love to climb naturally, so growing on a trellis keeps the fruit cleaner, it's more manageable, and more disease resistant. Remember, pick them small, and the more you pick, the more you get. I'm doing an experiment with some of mine this year. I've never done trellis lines before, and this is my first time at it. What I am finding with my experience, that I would have rather used like 5-gallon buckets or larger containers probably for them, but it's not doing too bad. It's just that I started a little late in the season to get as good a harvest as I wanted to get with it. But I am finally able to get some cucumbers, because I was really frustrated earlier this year. It just didn't seem like anything was ever getting pollinated. So I bought the self-pollinating ones. And of course they're smaller cucumbers, but you know, they are working, and I'm able to have my salads, which I do love, and other things that I like to make with cucumbers for the family. Whole beans or runner beans love to grow vertically. You can plant several types all around each other. They're not going to hurt each other. It makes a beautiful look in the garden, and it's so much easier to harvest them as they're hanging down. Just go along and cut what you need. And even like me, I planted some that I had never planted before called a yard long bean, and they grew really long first before they started to fill in. Only the problem was, since I had never grown them before, I wasn't real sure when to harvest them, and I was waiting for them to turn a darker green. Well, they never did. They stayed a light green, and I waited too long and came out the next day, and they had the brown tint to them, and they were already trying to go to seed. No problem though, because I didn't have very many seeds to begin with, so I'm going to pick them and let them dry, and I'll use them next year when I go to plant some more. And once again today, when I'm making the video, don't be surprised if there's a honeybee or two flying around on the lens. I don't know why they are swarming so bad. We have not figured it out. I have not found a nest, but they are just fascinated, I guess, with the camera. Maybe they feel like they're left out. Peas are another veggie that naturally like to climb. The shell or the snap pea varieties, they add nutrients to the soil. That's also a great cover crop that you want to remember. Like, they like the cooler temperatures, so when you're doing your kind of prior winter shutdown, some people will plant peas so they can mature in time before winter gets there, and then just cover them with a clear type tarp so they can kind of keep on growing a few months even after they get that first frost. They don't always die out right away, so that's something to keep in mind. The bush type are the only ones that are going to be difficult for you to trellis. They're going to get so big, and they're just kind of going to sit there. You might be able to brace them up a little bit with the trellis, but they're not going to grow up the trellis because they are a bush type of bean. What I have found with the bush beans, they will tend to grow over the top of a planter or a raised bed and naturally fall downward and grow that way into a little bush, which is kind of cool, but because they don't like to stay upright like they should. Eggplants are excellent for trellising, and the only reason I'm telling you about trying it with eggplant is because they get so heavy once they start producing fruit, especially if you're not watching, you know, because you want the fruit to be firm and still, you know, not completely shiny when you go to harvest it, but you don't want it to go turn into the yellow gold color either, you know, if it's a purple or Black Beauty or something like that. Once you've let it turn that other color, it's going to seed. It's not going to be good to eat, but a trellis is going to give them more support, and you can companion plant them because they're really good, you know, to plant them around your beans and your peas so they can climb up those too. Did you know pumpkins actually have a stronger vine when you grow them on a trellis? It's because when they're hanging there and stuff, that the vine that actually hangs onto that fruit becomes stronger, and it's going to be more sturdy as the fruit begins to grow. Now, your smaller pumpkins like the Morgana or your sugar pumpkins, they're a little smaller in size, so you don't have to worry about maybe putting one of those mesh bags around them like we do for like cantaloupe that we're growing on trellises, or watermelon that we're growing on trellises, because when we grow them up so high, but when they start getting so big, I like to put something around them or make a hammock for them, so that way they have that extra support. Melons of all types love to grow on trellis systems. You can get the fruit hammocks or the mesh bags to put around the growing fruit. You can also get these little trays now. They didn't have things like this when I was a kid, which it's remarkable now, you know, your fruit laid in the dirt on the ground, and unless you had straw mulch or something down to kind of protect it. I do remember Mom putting holes in like old pie plates and things like that to support some of the fruit when it was on the ground. But you know, if it rained, then you had to go around and make sure that there was no water standing. So now they have these little round type plastic tray things that you can get that have little legs, and you set them on the ground, set the fruit on them, and they're just a little fruit support. So it's kind of neat. And I think they come in packages of like 6 or 12, but they're relatively inexpensive. They're a great thing to use just in case your vines are not all growing up on the trellis and some decide to grow out on the ground, and you have fruit growing. Once they are growing, it's kind of hard to put them up on a trellis once they are fruiting. Like I said, it's possible to grow squash vertically. Many gardeners have had great success with it. This is really my first year for trying it. I did okay with one plant, and we were able to harvest several of the yellow summer squash off of it. But unfortunately, then the vine borer got me. So it didn't matter. The plant looked really pretty hanging up on that pole and stuff, and the fruit was easy to pick, but once he got in there and done his thing, that was the end of that. So late in your fall season, you shouldn't have as much trouble with the vine borer coming and wiping out your crop, but there still are other pests that like to leach in there and ruin what you have. So squash is something that sometimes I think you're better off buying it in the store, but it's fun to grow, so I'm not going to give up on it. I'm still trying it again. You have to let that little seedling get a little bit big before you can start doing your pole trellising with it. And like I said, once again, I recommend getting either the 6 or 8 foot plastic pipe pole type thing to use for that. So like I said, this method makes checking the leaves easier, helps to prevent damage. It's easier to watch for the vine borers to see if they're ruining your plant. And then using a drip system is going to help with your watering success, but unless you kind of have your garden laid out early spring how you want to do it, and you're going to have it set in stone and not be making any changes, it's really hard to figure out exactly how you want to do that watering system. So we haven't done it yet. We're talking about a drip system for next year. You might hear a little noise behind me because I am still trying to do a tad bit of watering because my pepper plants needed a little drink. Usually I wait until real late in the evening after 8 o'clock, or I get up at 6 in the morning and water for about an hour and catch the stuff that needs it the most, because it's hard when you're limited on how much you can water. And so we've really had to watch it, and I had to go to like a once a week watering it. So the plants that were used to getting watered all the time had to really get used to, okay, we're only getting that one good drink, a deep soaking, and then, you know, we got to get used to that all week long. And then you pray and hope for rain in between time. So the early morning dew is nice because you know it's putting some moisture back in. But don't forget about your herbs. Grow them in small pots secured to a trellis or stacking planters for vertical growing. Another vertical growing veggie for stacking planters is strawberries. You can use wall mounted containers for that. Lastly, don't forget about decorative gourds. A lot of people use those, especially in the winter months. I don't really do much with that because we don't do a lot of parties and things like that. But if you have a lot of parties and do a lot of decorative things, you know, in your fall and winter months, gourds are a great thing to grow, and they love growing on a trellis. And then don't forget about your inviting plants too, your flowers and stuff. There are several flowers that love growing on trellises, and you want to remember, you know, if you want hummingbirds, you have to plant the right flowers, and you want to plant things so you will have something blooming from your start of spring season all the way into your late fall. That makes it nice, keeps your garden more colorful and more attractive to go out into, and just getting back to nature like that, it makes a person feel better. It's really good for your mental health, I think. It's more relaxing. I think a lot of people that do gardening, even if they start out small, and even youngsters who get into gardening, they have that sense of security and satisfaction, and it builds your self-esteem knowing you were able to do that, and you done something else that maybe nobody else has done yet, or you know, you done an experiment that you had success with, and you want to share it with other people. I mean, it's a really good feeling. So keep all those things in your mind and make sure your growing is unique, fun, and just enhances your garden all the way around. But you are going to love gardening by doing trellis ideas. So now I'm going to detach the camera from the stand, and give me a few minutes and we'll get back in there, and then I will talk to you about some things and some ways you can do some trellis growing. Okay, you are now going to be entering my little trellising area. And so at the start here, you can kind of see that I have taken this wire rolled fencing and used wood PVC pipe and also some stakes or fence post things, and lots of duct tape. Duct tape's great for everything. Anyway, to make this little horseshoe shaped trellis. And I have beans growing on this. I have harvested some that I let go to seed, and I'm going to be planting them again next year. But as you can tell, I also have Mr. Watermelon, who has went on my chicken wire fence and decided he liked that part of the trellis. So I have a little watermelon growing on there with the beans, which is not going to hurt anything. So these are my purple beans that I have growing. There's some more there. I've got some more to pick for seed. And then on this side, I have some more purple beans growing. And I believe there might be a few more yard-long beans growing. But they are great growing on the trellis. And behind them, I have my experiment going for this year. And it is trellis type. And these are actually what they call tomato trellis lines. And those are tomato clips. But as you can see, my little cucumbers. They're not doing too bad on this. So this particular plant is a keeper. And I will make sure that I plant it again next year. I had one that didn't get enough water and dried up on me. But I have some more here, as you can see, that are doing pretty well. And they were slow producing fruit because we had a lot of trees and stuff behind us that we had to cut. But now that the trees are gone, you can tell the weather's cooperating. They're starting to flower. And there's one little one growing right there. So hopefully there will be some more cucumbers. But they are great to grow on the trellis. And I mentioned growing melons on a trellis. So hopefully you can see. We have some growing on the trellis here, the vine, and have one resting on one of their little fruit rest plates. But they will grow around the trellis, and of course I kind of help them through. Here's another one growing through there. Now these are going to be little smaller melons, so, and then I have another one growing here, and I have a couple growing on this little fence on the back side, because once again the vines like to climb on something. And here's a couple more. And I did have a trellis here at one time where I had cucumbers growing on it, but I have since pulled them. But as you can tell, there's different types of trellis ideas that you can get, and they are very inexpensive. Now these are the poles that I was telling you about, and I like to use them for the tomatoes. Next year, what I'm going to do though with the indeterminates is I will grow more of them on a arch trellis. And of course these squash that I have finally growing, I believe some are zucchini and some are yellow, but I'm not really sure. Just hoping I still get a little variety, enough to get some zucchini bread made before Christmas. That would be nice. And then here's another thing that you can get. I believe I got these on Amazon, and they probably came in a 2-pack. But they are great for your vining plants. Tomato cages. Also, they work great. And maybe for the determinate tomatoes, but not the indeterminate, because they grow over the top of them. But they are wonderful for cucumber plants. So keep that in mind if you're frustrated with tomato cages, that they will do well when you're doing cucumbers. These are another type of trellis that you can get, and I think they might have been $15 a piece. They are a heavy-duty plastic, and you put them together. I have beans right there growing. Hopefully they have enough time to grow up the trellis. I don't have anything but maybe one plant in here, but they're kind of cute. Then moving over here, I have taken an arch trellis, and I have taken the mesh that you can get, and I put it around the trellis. And I have beans, runner beans, growing up that. And I believe these are my green beans. So they are great for growing any type of beans. And you can do just about any kind of trellising. Now, I have honeysuckle growing here, and it's growing on a trellis. So that's an example of a flowering plant. And of course, stacking planters for growing vertically. I have a lot of different herbs in there. So that's an example. There's another example right here. And these are cantaloupe melons, and I believe a couple pumpkins, and they are all growing on the trellis. And like I said, they, for the most part, they have naturally climbed up there, and I have not had to do much to maneuver them around. And of course, something or someone has been digging into my strawberries, but I also have strawberries in stacking planters, so you can grow vertically. And there's another example there. I have another big stacker back there. And spinach. Some of your vining spinach will also grow on a trellis. Now, of course, I'm going to let some of this go to seed so I can plant some more seeds next year. These Romas are determinate, so they're only going to get so big. But I have other tomato plants that will get huge. And this type trellis here is what I was talking about for growing your tomatoes on. Just a regular arch trellis, and like I said, you can make that using cattle panel or concrete mesh wire, anything like that. And just the ideas are just up to you. And I've taken fencing there and, you know, put it with that, just attached it, and they will grow. But it gives you some idea of your vertical gardening. You can do the same thing with pepper plants. See how tall they are getting? That might be something that I'll be doing different next year. I may put some of the pepper plants around trellises, just because of the size. Depending on what plant, what variety that you get, it's just going to give it more support. Same thing with your eggplant. Anyway, I hope you got something out of this video today. I hope you enjoyed the information and that you learned something that you can try if you're wanting to try the vertical gardening. And keep sowing and growing. Learn something new every day when you're out in the garden. It's a great experience. It's fun, unique. It's very calming. And there's a sense of joy and satisfaction that you get from gardening that you just don't really know how to describe it. And of course, I like coming out here, sitting under the pear tree. I have a couple little bird feeders there, and I can sit back and just watch nature, and it's just a good feeling. Anyway, hit the notification bell so that way you know when we release more videos. And be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Tell your friends and neighbors, family about us. We depend on you so we can grow, and so our channel can get bigger, and hopefully we can become affiliated someday with some of the other garden product producers and grow big, as they say, and be able to share other things that we have learned along the way and keep on sharing, because that's really what it's all about. Sharing and caring and teaching other people some of the things that you learn. There's a little birdie. I don't know if you can see him. They're telling me, feed me, it's time for more food. I guess I need to get on it and get some more of my favorite mix made up for them. Anyway, you have an awesome day, and I've enjoyed you. You are family to us. Great friends and family. I mean, what can be better than that? You guys really make life great, and we do appreciate you more than you'll ever know. So keep sowing and growing. Don't be melancholy. Remember, you're in the garden. Let us remain happy, successful, and loved. Peace.